Life on Saturn presents nothing. We got nothing. We got nothing. We got nothing. Nope.
Yo, yiggity yo! What is good, everyone? We are coming at you once more from Life on Saturn's own Far Out There podcast, We Got Nothing Blue. I am your host, the boy from the galaxy next door, Catalyst Jost, and I am here today with a very special guest. To some, he is known as Laugh It Up Fuzzball. To others, he would be considered an uncle. To me, in my opinion, he is the true gray Jedi of the North Country, and without a doubt, one of the key factors in my evolution as a geek. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me introduce you to Charles Smith. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Hopefully I will not disappoint.
I have no doubt that you will not. That's how wordplay works, right?
Sure.
How was the drive up here? Because I know you came all the way down from Troy.
Well, I'd be up from Troy. Cold, wet, North Country.
Right. Classic style. By the looks of it, we are going to have as you've always said, a classic North Country Halloween, which is actually this coming Friday.
Get your snowshoes out, people.
Yeah, I think they said it's supposed to be like 43. Not necessarily snow, but I feel bad for everyone who is up in the mountains, particularly Wilmington area. So, correct me if I'm wrong, the big 4-0 is coming up in like a matter of months, if not, it's a year and a half?
That it is. Yeah, we got about half a year.
Okay, so 4 decades. You have been on this earth for damn near 4 decades, and you have been there for some of the biggest evolutions in geek culture in terms of comic books, television, video games, the works. And one thing I've always wanted to know, like, what has it been like for you seeing the evolution of animation in particular? This has always been a subject between you and I.
Well, I will say it has been interesting, even though it has hit definitely an improvement curve. There were a lot of interesting step forwards and step backs from my observation. I mean, a lot of the earliest ones are, like classic Hanna-Barbera and like the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, where some of that can be difficult to watch. A lot of reused animation in cells, but yeah, you'll find a few gems like Thundercats where they tried some stuff, hit some angles that nobody else was doing, and pushed the envelope for.
I think one of the things you see in terms of improvement, especially I would say in probably the leading up to the early 2000s, was there was just no longer a market for what they call cell shading. Like, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, I think for Cartoon Network at least, one of the last true forms of that was Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. The creator was Craig McCracken, who did the original Powerpuff Girls there. And right after that, you start to see more of a, would be the term for it, this cheaper style. Like, best example, you look at SpongeBob from back in when it first came out in 99, and then the next season it was a completely different art form in terms of the animation.
Well, one of the things you also have to consider is also the introduction of software created versus doing it by hand. I mean, obviously, you look at a lot of the stuff by the 80s and 90s, those were drawn by hand. Why? Because all the characters seem to have this vibrate effect, or, this jumpiness, Where when I go back and watch the cartoons of the 90s, like X-Men cartoon, or I think Wildcats was another one that I was looking at, they always kind of seem to be in this weird vibrate mode. And again, that's the indicator of, things were being hand-drawn,
Yeah, I mean, you look at stuff like the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle cartoons, and especially the biggest example, in my opinion, was the 90s cartoon version of Spider-Man. Like, you can see how that style works its way through those particular animated shows.
Yeah, it's just like you lose consistency within frames, I mean, I just started watching through the classic Ninja Turtles again, because I now have them on DVD. And again, those early episodes, you get the jump, you get varying proportions, and every once in a while you get something like incorrectly colored, or the wrong voice in the wrong character. And it's just like, why is Donatello speaking with Raphael's voice?
Yeah, you're also, I would say, kind of a stickler for some of those traditions. Now, do you think that the animation quality might have improved after cell shading became like a dead zone in terms of that stuff?
Not quite. Could you clarify what you mean by that?
Well, there are some who appreciate the art of the cell shading from the original 90s and some of the early 2000s in terms of their quality of art. Like, because it was more hand-drawn, you could actually see more of the labors of love crafted into that kind of stuff. Because essentially when it came to cell shading stuff, it was almost no different than, say, taking it from a comic strip, like something you'd see from the Sunday comics, versus something that you would do on the computer. Like, again, the computer's cheaper, but then you also run the risk of, like, there's more artists in that aspect that might be out of a job in terms of that market too.
Well, again, it comes with everything when you're observing something. It depends on what you're looking for and what your mindset is at the time. I know a lot of times I'll delve into the older ones because I have a lot of nostalgic feelings for them. Now, if I was watching them for the first time with the cleanliness and the sharpness of animation from the past 10 years, I'd be looking at this and go, wow, how are you watching this without getting sick? Because it's like going back and playing 8-bit video games when you've been on modern games for so long. It's like, I can't see anything anymore. I can't navigate this.
Yeah, you've regularly told me that, like, I mean, we just ate at a restaurant and you were, what, I would say you were a decent 12 feet away from the 4K screen, and you were like, I need to take a sec. Ugh.
Yeah, I'm good with HD, but when you start getting into the projection, some of it can wig me out a little bit. But again, when it comes down to, I usually, I have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of the older properties. Again, one of my favorites is Mickey's Christmas Carol. Now, you watch that, again, that's classic Disney animation, that's bumpy, that's jumpy, and, it's just like you get discolorations, but it's got so much warmth in it. Where a lot of the new stuff, unless you build an emotional attachment to it, can come off as sometimes kind of cold. Like one of my examples, the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. That's a lot cleaner and sharper, and don't get me wrong, I love them, but they can sometimes feel a little sterile in comparison to classic Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, and Mickey's Christmas Carol.
Comparing the Justice League cartoons from the 2000 versus, like, say, Batman the Animated Series and the Superman series from 1990, what is your opinion on the differing styles there in terms of animation?
Again, the 90s stuff has more nostalgia to it. I was younger, I attached to it more. And also, you had fantastic writing and talent in there. Not to say there wasn't in Justice League, but a lot of the stories that came out, like Paul Dini, penning like one of the most renowned ones again. And this is not me. I'm lifting from Kevin Smith's conversations on his podcasts. It's like I knew them, but I felt so much warmth listening to them. But Heart of Ice, where they introduced into the Mr. Freeze. That is still one of the most renowned stories in the animated series, and it's so good, but again, it's just like that does have, the texture, for lack of a better, of a classic animation, as opposed to the over polished of the newer stuff. And it's like having a print book versus a digital book. It's just like the digital book is going to be on your machine, it's going to be sleeker, but the paper has a texture to it, and that's always going to have different feelings.
Right. In going off what you said about writing there, you've also witnessed the change from animation being more of a kid's thing to it being a platform for adults or for even kids there, like more darker themed storylines. Best example being Batman the Animated Series. Now, in your opinion, has writing deferred in any sort of way or gone down in terms of quality? And this is kind of a two-part question. In your opinion also, what do you think would be the most, the better in terms of challenge, versus writing something that has a darker theme, but also making it so that kids can watch it versus going gung-ho for themes in terms of the adult content?
Well, I think certain properties have been able to actually do that pretty effectively. Like the Teen Titans show. That is geared toward kids, but the original content has a lot of dark elements. I mean, Raven in herself there's a lot of darkness in there. But they actually, I think they kind of, without getting into the grit of the adult end of that, they get plenty of snark in there. It's kind of like the classic Looney Tunes, where there were a lot of jokes for the kids, but there were still plenty of jokes for the adults, that they knew the kids would not understand,
There was one joke from the original Justice League cartoon in the 2000s there, where Flash says something to Diana, Wonder Woman there, and it was something smart, and then Diana retorts with, so that's why you're the fastest man alive, referring to a specific innuendo.
Well, again, it's just like Justice League, I believe, was written in that kind of mid-range where ultimately the animation is going to appeal toward kids. They're superheroes, so they're going to keep it a certain level of, in quotations, G, because they have to. But there's also plenty of they're also trying to appeal to the adults as well, to get them watching it too. So
yeah, you even see it in properties especially the first 4 seasons of SpongeBob. There are a ton of crude jokes that are hidden well in plain sight. I actually didn't look this up till Steven Hillenburg, the creator, had died, and I saw a compilation of all of the hidden adult jokes there, and I'm just like, oh, so this is why people are angry when their kids watch that. It's so much you just
Well, again, one of the things too, most of the time they're not going to notice because they don't know to notice it. A lot of times kids will only repeat things when the adults react to it. I know. It's just I knew certain phrases would set my parents off. I didn't know why, but I knew they would get my attention. And you also have to remember an adult brain and a child brain is different, So sometimes you can do a certain amount of latitude, but and you can allow, through proper development and growing up, eventually that child will become an adult and realize, oh my God, you let me watch that? Yeah.
Yeah, well, what was it recently I was talking to you about a couple weeks ago? I'm currently on season 7 of Regular Show, and you
hung in there.
Oh, I love it. I extremely love it. Here's the thing, though. I don't watch major shows like Breaking Bad or Lost or even those animated shows like Adventure Time and Regular Show when they're mad hype, because there's always the chance it's not going to be nearly as good as people say they are. Two, it can draw a lot of toxic traits from their respective fan bases. And more importantly, like for me, who has that mindset, I'm still trying to catch up on stuff like, I don't know, The Office or The Sopranos. And then that's when I'm finally in the mood to be like, okay, now it's time to see what the hype's about with this show. It's like, nice. And there's less pressure about it to like see it. Because nowadays you also see people really hammering home. It's like, oh no, this show's better. This show's better. It's like, guys, I got to work out my schedule around like so many different projects and work itself. So like when it comes to the stuff I need to watch, I got to be strategic about that because I'm giving my time to those, you know?
Yeah, you have so many spoons of energy.
Right.
Yeah, that was not mine either. So, spoon theory, copyright not mine.
But going back to what I was saying, when you and I were talking about regular show, it was one of those. It's one of the few cartoons that make you like, the fuck am I watching right now?
Oh yeah. But that's the brilliance behind it, is because just about everything writing, everything else out there usually follows like a basic structure. You're going to have a rising action. You're going to have a falling action. It's going to take you up and down, up and down. It's just like if they bring you up, they're going to have to bring you back down. So there's a reason to come back next week. Regular show don't care. Regular show is a straight line that keeps going up and up and up. It doesn't come back down. Basically, they bypass any sense of reality. Within the first 2 minutes, they cross that line and just keep going. And I think that's part of the relaxing part of it, because there's a logic to it, but logic is not the right word. It's a lunatic logic, but it can be very fun. You do have to be in the right mindset, because there are certain blends where it just won't work. But other times it's just a fun ride. It's how ridiculous can we make this go?
Right. One of the things that I love about shows like that,
Ren and Stimpy or Meow.
Right.
Schnookums and Meat, I think it was a more tame version, but it was similar. It was like, how ridiculous can we make this? Tom and Jerry followed a similar one, but that did have a falling action to bring it back down. But it was, let's see how ridiculous we can make this.
Right. Like absurdist cartoons, absurdity in cartoons has been around since the harken of Mickey Mouse, because animation is one of the very few forms of art where you can get those kind of themes out there in the most ridiculous way possible. And what I loved about shows like Regular Show and Adventure Time is that they kind of used what made Warner Brothers, both of their animated industries, work. When it came to the adult and absurd content, I saw a lot of references to that of Aqua Teen Hunger Force, the Venture Brothers, but obviously in a more tame sense. And when it came
quotations tame,
quote unquote tame,
they did try to put a little bit more wrangling, at least to sometimes bring it back into a little bit reality, so you'll tune in next week.
Yeah, there are some episodes that are much more, relaxed, less caffeinated than others.
Ignore me!
And what is it? I think it also took a lot of the good aspects from what made Cartoon Network such a prime network for children's animation. The biggest example I can see, especially when it comes to the big time battles in those shows, I harken back to stuff like the Powerpuff Girls, where they would go against giant monsters, but especially when it came to like big time battles, I harken to Codename Kids Next Door, where that was one of the first shows where you start seeing like these big climactic showdowns where you would originally see in something like the Power Rangers movies with Megazords or like the Transformers movies with these big giant robot battles, but they were happening and were well animated in these cartoon shows and gave it more of a sense of life to the child's imagination, especially.
Yeah, the child's imagination doesn't make sense to us. It's not supposed to. There's our. I think one of the big things is that theirs will still run off. Emotion is their primary driver. Logic is still being learned and formed. Where usually adults are kind of the. I'm not going to say the reverse. We're plenty emotional, but we try to rely on our logic more often than not. So that's why we get confused and then tired. And it's just like, I can't process this. It's because you're using the wrong muscles. You know, so I'm not sure where I was going with this. Sorry for geek-splaining.
New term, geek-splaining.
No, I'm sure that's already out there.
That's a new one to me, though.
Nah. But I think also that is also one of the always appeals of, at least from a child's perspective, it gives you a leg up on the adults. Because when the adults just give up in frustration, you can just turn to them and go, "You just don't get it, Dad." You know.
Yes. I've had those incidents a few times in my younger years myself.
You don't get many of those as a kid, so you cherish it when you get it. Just stop, Mom. Don't even try. I appreciate the effort, but no.
Also regarding animation, and not just necessarily like cartoon shows or whatnot, this also applies to video games, especially after. One thing I talk about with Saturn there is that he attributes one of the falling, the falling market for original voice actors, like where that's their main primary drive, can be harkened to when Robin Williams was the genie in Aladdin, because after that you start to see a lot more big names take on voice roles, even if like they're not necessarily good at voicing anyone but who they are. And looking at it over the years, there is some legitimacy to that, because nowadays you don't see a Kevin Conroy or a Troy Baker anymore, or Nolan North. Like, they're a dying breed where that's...
I don't know. I'm going to dispute that, because again, there are still like plenty of voice actors who are not as popular in front of the camera, where they're still getting work. Yeah, they're still doing well. One of my thoughts, at least to my knowledge, I mean, I could be missing a lot of research. Yeah, I haven't put a lot of research into it, but I know one group that traditionally has gotten a good amount of work in the past 5 years since I've been watching them, like the cast of Critical Role. They're all professional voice actors. I've seen their names keep popping up in video games, anime, it's just like animation, so I don't think the Hollywood stars in front of the camera are stealing all the work. I still think there's plenty of work for aspiring voice actors, but obviously if they're sharing the stage with a star, they're not going to shine on that project as much. But a lot of the times when it comes back, I'm using my ears. It's just like I'll hear voices where I know that voice. That voice is from this property. Who is? And that's where it builds the recognition. So, again, we were talking about. Now, don't get me wrong. He's been in the front of the camera plenty, but a lot of my favorite stuff by him is his voice acting. Clancy Brown. I can pick his voice out very easily now. But to my knowledge, Conroy was another one that didn't have as much in front of the camera time, but his voice is very distinguishable now. He is Batman. Sorry guys, he is Batman.
He is Batman.
So Yeah, I don't think the in front of the camera stars are taking the work, but yeah, taking all the work.
But from a marketing standpoint, it would make more sense
Oh
to...
yeah, if you're gonna get like in the case, you get Will Smith voicing your your one of your characters there. Yeah, you're gonna put his name big, so because that's gonna be a huge draw. But you'll also be listening to the other voices, and it's just like you'll always know his voice, but every once in a while you'll get one that, I've heard that before. Who is that?
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience a few weeks ago when I finally watched Young Justice there. That was originally on Cartoon Network. It's on HBO Max now. Mm-hmm. And what was it? Second episode actually, when they finally introduced Superboy into the mix, I hear the voice and I'm like, where do I know him from? Turned out it's Nolan North from the Uncharted games there. Mm-hmm. He voices, Nathan Drake. Yeah. And I'm like, damn. And then the next episode I watched was one with Bane. They introduced Bane into the mix. He's being voiced by Danny Trejo, and I'm like, only him.
One of my favorites, though, is David Hayter, where, I apologize, sir. The only one that I remember seeing him in front of the camera was Guyver 2 Dark Hero. He played the lead. Everything else, Snake! He was Snake. Yeah, he was Snake in the Metal Gear Solid games.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That I did not know.
But yeah, it's there's plenty of work out there.
Now, we've been telling about most of the goodness of, say, DC animation and whatnot so far. I also wanted to get an opinion. I don't believe I've ever asked you this one. Between Marvel and DC, and let's put all the categories out there: animation, comic books, and movies. Which one do you think falls in the superior limelight?
That is a hard question.
Do you want to focus on just one specific aspect?
Well, yeah, it's hard to choose, but I would say, can't say like the Marvel Cinematic Universe is new, it's a decade, but I would honestly say the ones that will always grab my attention, even if I can't watch them immediately, honestly will be DC's animated. They have consistently kept me in awe and, given me what I've been looking for more often than not. Not to say the other stuff is bad, but it's just personally, it's kind of like hearing the Star Wars theme in a crowded mall. You got to find out where that's coming from. Something that comes out of the DC animated offices will usually have a similar thing. It's like, I gotta at least read the back and see if this is a story I want to read, but a story I want to watch. And do I have enough money to buy or rent it? But I have again, a lot of the big stock is in the Batman animated, the Batman Superman Adventures, the Justice League animated stuff. I still ride pretty heavily on that, and they usually give me a consistent quality in terms of story and visuals that I'm looking for. So
yeah, what was it? The other night I was watching the Killing Joke movie on Netflix there, and I do remember reading the comic book a couple of years back. Mm-hmm. Absolute perfection. Like there's supposed to be there was a second part to that story, right? I forget about that. Either way, like the first part was amazing, telling the story of how Batgirl became Oracle, and arguably one of the most foul things the Joker has done to Batman throughout their rivalry. Well, what would be the feud, and also you kind of get an actual look into his origins with that one. And
one of the things that I loved about that story was and again, there's plenty of arguments to this, but it's just, especially down near the wire, show you how close, how fine of a line Batman is walking, between him and the Joker. It's just like, I'm not saying, two sides of the same coin, but they're very, very similar, and it's just like sometimes it can get scary how similar they can be to each other. And I found that very interesting, and I don't know, I kind of, because it gave them almost kind of like a destiny connection.
Well, even especially in the past, I'll say 15, 20 years, you finally get to really see how the Joker wants a similar thing to what Batman wants. He wants to cleanse what he views as a corrupt society, especially in terms of crime. But the way he goes about it is more anarchistic and much more, nihilistic, versus Batman, who really just wants to make the world a better place by eradicating evil and making it more of a utopia.
Well, here's the thing, and I apologize if this comes off as cold.
Ooh.
Borderline sociopathic. But again, they're kind of trying to do the same thing. Batman's trying to, clear or contain, if he's going to play in the law, those he deems evil. Well, from Joker's perspective, everybody else is the evil element. He's just trying to eradicate them, wipe them off the board.
Some men want to watch the world burn, Master Bruce.
So again, it kind of shows you working more parallel, even though they are opposed.
Right.
So, again, it's that you're walking a fine line there, Bruce. Be careful.
Our friend Jason, shout out to Jason Connors there. He has told me that some of the better comic book storylines between that and Marvel and DC usually have happened within the confines of the DC universe. Can you give any sense of legitimization or what would be the word, a counteraction to that statement?
You mean crossovers between Marvel and DC?
No. As in more quality storylines within DC versus Marvel?
The thing is, I couldn't even because I've seen awesome and crap on both sides of that border, and it's just like, and it also depends what time frame you're talking about. It's just there's so many factors going, because in the end, that can boil down to which is better, DC or Marvel. Who's done better storylines, DC? And it's just like, A, depends who you ask, and B, depends on when. I mean, I know I have ones that I love. I mean, frankly, I still love the Batman Hush series. And all the Batman and Superman that I got my hands on, especially the ones where they depict Kara Zor-El coming in. It's just like, I mean, that's what we're all hoping Justice League would be the Batman Superman cross, but we got Batman versus Superman. Okay. Sorry.
Your mom's name is Martha too? What?
Okay. We're friends now.
Oh,
right.
Jeez.
Well, if you need a bonding point, I guess so. But no, Batman, Superman comics were a lot better, in my opinion. But no. I know I could take a lot of flack, but I enjoyed the Marvel Onslaught series. You know, what would happen if we smash Magneto and Professor X together into a giant monster? I don't know. I'll keep reading and let's find out. Yeah, it eventually rebooted the whole. Got rid of all the mutants. Yeah, thank you, Franklin Richards. But
I think one of the biggest things originally for me that was harder to really relate to more DC comic book heroes versus Marvel ones was the fact that with a lot of DC heroes, they're essentially gods. And the ones that are actually human, more often than not, you see them in places of social status, maybe even wealth, that a lot of the common man just does not know.
Right. Well, it's like some of the closest ones to ground level were like Green Arrow, where, after he took the costume off, he went back and lived his life as, Oliver Queen, Playboy. Batman. Where, you get the stories like the ones that the Netflix picked up. Oh, God, I felt the Netflix. Netflix picked up basically the Defenders team, and those are ground level heroes. I don't recall as many of those in DC. I mean, you also look at where the Justice League base of operation is in a satellite orbiting the Earth. Okay, but they don't feel they're above us already. They're literally above us.
Right. Which is why my favorite superhero to this day is still Spider-Man, because Peter Parker truly is the everyman superhero. He balances having a romantic relationship, an actual job, going to school, all these things. And there have been multiple other things he's had to juggle over the years through all these comic book storylines. But it's also the fact that he's mortal, and especially being a dude in his mid-20s, I really relate to all those aspects of juggling projects, juggling friendships, juggling vocation.
Well, think of it this way. If Harry Osborn was Spider-Man instead of Peter Parker, is that relatable?
Not at all.
Most of us can relate to the pressure of going to school, keeping a job, maintaining relationships. Fewer of us, trust funds and Aspen, So, and you really think the morals of Uncle Ben would have come through for Harry? Do you think Norman would have, with great power comes great responsibility? No, it would have been with great power comes great profit.
Yeah, it would have been a carbon copy of Batman, only, most of Harry's relatives would still be alive.
Spider Goblin. That was happening regardless of Spider-Man.
Oh, Jesus.
Mighty Morphin, Goblin Ranger. Sorry.
It's funny because I was actually watching this YouTube video. I forget the dude's name in his channel, but he did an in-depth analysis on the Sam Raimi trilogy. I really, truly forgot. Now stepping out of that childhood nostalgia thing right now, how cheesy it all was. Like, looking at it now, there is so much campy cheesiness that I truly want to rewatch those movies just for a laugh.
Well, here's the thing. The key words, keywords you spoke before when you started that. Sam Raimi. I love him. But, especially when he has Bruce to play with, oh my God, it's magic. Again, you kind of look at the Evil Dead movies. The first movie, straight horror. That's what they were shooting for. No campiness. Supposed to scare the hell out of everybody. The things that were funny about that were not meant to be funny. The second one, they said, they were more along the lines of, let's play with some stuff. We remember the first one. Certain things came off goofy. Let's just do it on purpose. So they kind of seem to like split the difference. Let's do it like half horror, half comedy.
Groovy.
Yeah. It started as a horror, turned into a I don't want to say horrific. A comedic horror. No. Horror was its primary, but it had comedic elements to it. And then the last one was a comedy with a horror backdrop. By Army of Darkness, they knew who they were. They knew what they wanted to do. Most of it was see how much crap Sam could hit Bruce with. How much junk and garbage he could throw on him and have it filmed. How many times he could slap him, with tree branches and bones and punch him in the nuts with them. But well, whatever. They have an interesting relationship. It works. But no, the key thing is that they look. The work showed that they had a lot of fun doing it. And that's who they needed to be. And that kind of came through in Spider-Man with the campy.
Well, what I find...
They were having fun.
Right. What I find really funny, and this was pointed out on the video, a lot of the best moments from those series is actually the extras in the background. You see extras looking confused, getting hit by random debris. Hell, like, all due respect to the actors who play in these movies... Somehow they got some of the worst performances from these A-list stars too, or just funny, as you would put it, funny when it was not meant to be. I still love Willem Dafoe's performance in the first Spider-Man. I do not care that he is a Power Ranger in Green Goblin form. It makes it better.
No, Willem Dafoe was so much fun. It's just like, I don't know how you landed him, but I'm glad you did. Because that was a lot of fun. And, regardless of how ridiculous it got, he still rocked it.
Yeah, and you also see a lot of references from Evil Dead, especially in some of the horror aspects, like particularly Doc Ock's reveal in Spider-Man 2 in the hospital there. Like that was a scene shot right out of it with the first-person camera work and all that. Mm-hmm. And of course, this was actually pointed out to me in this video too. Raimi has a thing for women screaming. So, one more thing I want to touch upon. This Friday, we are going to be seeing the second season of The Mandalorian, arguably one of the things that is currently saving Star Wars as a whole right now. So,
Thank you, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. You guys are amazing.
No, facts. And... looking at Star Wars all through the years, how do you think it's going so far?
Mandalorian, I'm loving. I will say, with the exclusion of quote-unquote Baby Yoda, they did a fantastic job not having to fall back on the Jedi lore in order to carry the show. Star Wars has a hard time doing that. I mean, come on. Warrior clerics with laser swords and magic powers, why would we gravitate away from that? But up until the end of the first season, they seem to hold their own, staying away from anything too Jedi-y. That's not a word, but man.
It is now.
Sorry.
No, you're not.
A little bit. But I know some of it's going to start gravitating that way. But again, I know one, I don't know how it's standing. I was enjoying it and it had ups and downs. But Resistance, I think it was the animated one, that stayed away from the Jedi, and I thought that was doing well. For a lot of us, it's hard to sometimes pay attention if the laser swords aren't flying.
This is a valid point.
I'm not gonna lie. It's just like I grew up with that. It's just like, all you have is a blaster pistol and a fast ship. He's got a laser sword and magic powers. He wins.
Well, my counteraction to those statements is, look at stuff like Rogue One and Solo. I don't care what people say. Solo was an excellent, what would be the word? Singular story set in the universe. There are a couple parts where it can be a bit campy, but
it laid fantastic groundwork.
Exactly. I love the characterizations of particularly Lando, and this makes me ask a question that you could answer. I've talked to a lot of Star Wars fans. Why do some people get tight about the droids actually having personalities? Like, best example, Lando's friend there from Solo, and especially the droid from Rogue One. Why do people get upset about those kind of things?
I wasn't aware people were legitimately getting upset about it. The only things that I could think about that, maybe if they think it's some type of perversion of a character, or they just not like the personality they chose for them. People have many differing opinions. I'm not going to say many are wrong, but I'm not going to say they're right either. I don't know where problems would come forth. And I'm not sure if it's just a droid having a personality that they're having a problem with, but more of the personality they chose for that.
And as your mother would correctly say, everyone has the right to their own opinion, no matter how wrong it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's got an opinion, and
opinions are like assholes.
Yep. Most of them stink and should be hidden behind clothes.
Oh,
Oh, that'll get edited out.
Oh, no, it will not. That's staying.
Okay. So this podcast is explicit now.
Surprisingly, we have not gotten demonetized on YouTube in spite of foul language, but I think that's just because you don't see as many views on ours. So, because I think once you start reaching a more popular national level, to the point where you're starting to get paid or noticed by a whole range of different people, that's when the stupid stuff about YouTube censorship.
You need to re-edit this, or we're gonna have to take it down. So wrangling back to it, it could be a myriad of issues. Because people have a myriad of reasons, but I think it's more of a function of the personality archetype that's chosen. The character was a very headstrong, liberated female personality. Yeah, that's going to piss off a lot of fanboys.
Yeah, actually, I've had this discussion with Saturn about this. One time he went over to a dude's...
I loved it.
I loved it too. He went over to a dude's house. He was some kind of radio talk show, I think. They were discussing about the new Star Wars. I think particularly Last Jedi. And the dude he was talking with said he had a main problem with the movies because they were introducing more women to the franchise and giving them actual storylines that transcend beyond dancing for Jabba the Hutt in a golden bikini.
Oh yeah. People don't want actual women intruding in their clubhouse. It's just it's male ego horseshit. But yeah, it's the clubhouse mentality. No girls allowed, and it's just it was bullshit then. But the difference then is we were adolescents and we didn't know better. If that transcended to adulthood, you have bigger issues, So there are plenty of help out there for usually reasonable rates. Maybe you should go talk to somebody about that, because you're going to lead a very difficult life with that mindset.
Oh, isn't that the truth? I mean, unfortunately, that points out to a lot of, like, fanboys in general still here. Like, there's so many people that have had problems with stuff like Wonder Woman and especially Captain Marvel, which I thought was a great movie.
Well, the problem is it's not about the storytelling. It's not about the acting. It's about the people and what their beliefs and upbringing have brought them to. So it's all of the titles that they were fantastic work, and I am happy. I'm ecstatic to see that it's not an exclusionary property where we might have thought it was when we were younger. It's just like a lot of us thought it was the boys' clubs because only the boys would talk to us about it. The girls were like, really?
Right. I mean, you told me...
but it always comes down to we were talking to the wrong girls.
Right. No, you told me about the story of Jill, our friend Jill there.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she's beauty queen back when you guys are going to school. Turns out to be one of the biggest geeks out of everyone in our particular group.
Mm-hmm. We had many Dragonlance conversations. She actually got... I ended up reading her copy of the Annotated Chronicles while I was working in college, and after that I went and got another copy of the original set myself. It's the Weiss and Hickman Dragonlancer, original stories. And the thing is, not saying all, it's just most of the women I came into contact with, if I tried to talk any type of high fantasy, D&D, Star Wars, I got eye rolls all the way. Granted, most of this was when I was in high school. Most of us were trying to attain whatever stereotype we were put into, what image. So, and that's where Jill was. It's just like she was, expected to maintain a certain image, while all the time she just wanted to geek out. So we were so thankful. Because she actually met, I think, Jason in Potsdam, and then when he moved back to the Malone area, we started hanging out. And then they eventually came out to go to Plattsburgh. And again, very thankful for that, and it's just it's the old cliche. You can't necessarily judge the book by its cover.
What? So real quick, I also want to give a shout out to my uncle Bill Smith. He has most recently, he's gotten the book on Amazon. Like, what's the story about that?
His the Outlaw Galaxy Chronicles. He has 4 books up there. Books 1 and 2 are the main storyline, and I believe 3 and 4 are compilation short story books. All available on Amazon. I think they are all $2.99 a piece.
All right. So if anyone out there loves similar stuff from The Mandalorian, but set in a different universe and a little bit more kid-friendly, please pick up Trip in the Space Pirates and any of the, what was it called again? Outlaw Galaxy books.
And also visit him on BillSmithBooks.com. That is the home of Outlaw Galaxy.
He's actually saved as Galactic Outlaw in my phone. And after all of this, flat out, we got nothing, as usual. So if y'all would like to find out more about up-and-coming LOS projects, please follow us at Life on Saturn Productions on Instagram, on Facebook, and Life on Saturn Productions LOS on YouTube, where you can catch this glorious podcast whenever you want. And if you'd like to see more of the content I personally provide, please follow me over at Catalyst Jost on Instagram, Catal 5TJ05T. And with all that in mind, I'd like to thank you, sir, for being on this podcast. I think you've been one of my better guests yet.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you, folks, very much. Keep your Zen and keep it flowing. And as always, peace.
Hey, I'm Saturn Lunar Nova. Be sure to follow Life on Saturn Productions on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook to see our short films and music videos. Peace.